Hi, everybody, it's Datum, and I'm really excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today. This is session -1, and a lot of you might have no idea what I'm talking about, but I want to let you know kind of what people seem to mostly do and what I've done in the past to get people that I've been world building for and running a campaign for really engaged with what I'm making. So that's going to be the topic today. And if you like what you see, make sure that you like, subscribe, hit the bell, and comment on the video. I'd really like to know what you're thinking about and how you found the video, anything. I'd really like to get to know more people out there in the YouTube community that are doing D&D content and that like D&D content. So make sure that you're interacting there. I definitely tried to answer all of my comments as quickly as I can. So in the last video, we talked about basically the three different modes that you can play something like Dungeons and Dragons in, which is fully published, modular, we're using some things that you found and published things to make a world, and then sandbox. So session -1 really applies to long-term campaigns with groups that you've got some confidence are gonna stick together and gonna be worthwhile to do some extra prep and bring in the interests of the people that you're playing with. So traditionally, what people do is they have something called session 0, which is a time that everybody gets together and they make their characters. That's traditionally how it's done. And I think what I found really is that it's really hard to compress all of that energy into a single session. And really, all you get is whatever people say when they're in a group. So, what I did, even with the first campaign that I ever ran, was there was some prep time. There were weeks before we actually started playing the game where I thought about things and figured out what I wanted to do, and this was kind of modular. I really hadn't done a whole lot of it before, but I felt like it was really important to know what my players were interested in and what they liked. So when I talked to them individually in this session -1 situation, I really talked to them about what was the tone that they were thinking that the game would be, like how serious would it be, how much of a kind of fantasy epic was this versus like a fantasy kind of slapstick adventure. So I got that kind of read off of my players. It was kind of like really we were searching for what genre is the game gonna be? Is it gonna be have certain elements that are gonna make it more of a kind of horror or mystery or straight up adventure, or what did they think about those elements? And also in this session, I went out to my players and I really kind of set the expectations of what I wanted to do and what I expected from them. So I really didn't expect a whole lot, maybe just a little bit of thinking about what was next and what they might do in the sessions that would come. But I wanted to let them know that I wanted to run a game that was heroic people doing heroic things. And so kind of limiting on really it wasn't going to be like super open, and there wasn't I wasn't interested in really running a group of people that were like bandits or barbarians or something like that. So I set that out that expectation, and I think between that and getting part of what they were looking for in that package, and really it's called session -1, but really it's a lot of little sessions because you're taking each player and you're taking some time to have that conversation with each of them. So really it's kind of like mini sessions for you as a game master. So with all that said, the last thing that I really kind of exposed them to in this session was the actual rules and the actual choices that they were able to make when it came to what they wanted to play, what race they wanted to be, and those kind of things. And there was a couple of things that I had made up myself, and I presented them with all the other regular options that were in the core books at that time, third edition Dungeons and Dragons, and they were able to start thinking about what they might want to play without having to wait until everybody came over to my place and was able to read the books and actually kind of figure out what they wanted to do. So it was this early exposure and allowing for people to have the time to be creative and think about what they really wanted to do instead of it just kind of being a snap thing of, okay, well, this kind of seems cool and we gonna want to get this rolling, so I'm gonna write this down. It was, I think, pretty successful. The group that I used that with and put together what I was doing, we ran for about 3.5 years. And I think that trying to think of like how much of the year we actually played. It was most of the year. We were all in a big marching band, so I didn't do it during the high marching band season. So there's probably a couple of months of the year that we didn't play. So it was probably, let's see, hmm, I'd say a good like 60 sessions or so, and really getting that front end information from them on what they enjoyed, what they like, what their ideas, aspirations of what they might do in a role playing game. That really let us take the game and make it something that was really special, and that I talk to those guys every once in a while and they still remember. We still remember a lot of the things that we did and what they did together, and I think that's something amazing. It makes me feel really great as somebody that was entertaining and leading that role playing experience. The last thing that I'd like to talk about today, it kind of bleeds over into session zero kind of topic where it's really got to focus on what fifth edition has done with bonds, flaws, and personality traits. And I really think that this has been a great addition to the game, but from what I've seen, I haven't seen a lot of really good use of it. Inspiration, which is a mechanic in 5th edition that has to do with you as a DM being able to use your DM fiat and say, hey, you have done a really cool thing or role playing experience. You've added a lot to the role playing experience in general, and so you are able to choose when you can take advantage on a roll. I think it's really a great way and a great tool to kind of incentivize people to play to who their character is, at least in what they've defined themselves. And I think that really it's kind of an overlooked part of the 5th edition system. Bonds, flaws, personality traits are a way to get everybody to have something that they're connected to. What you could see a lot when you're an adventurer, you can have this idea that having any attachments to anybody or anything just gives the DM something to attack. Well, some of that is true, but really what it does is it makes your character implicitly have a connection to somebody or something that is important to the whole situation. So I think that when you're sitting down and you're making your characters, those things are something that's pretty important. Now, honestly, I think the way that I would prefer it is they tell you to do two personality traits, but I think the best thing to do would have one personality trait that's defined when you start playing, and then as you play, you're able to fill in a second personality trait that through play you feel is fits with the game that's being created and the group dynamic and all of that. I think that that's a great way to make it to where the personality trait bond flaw systems, you can kind of expand on them. You could add bonds and flaws and those kind of things, and they're really there's always this idea of like balance and power in fifth edition, and I think really if you just want to be better, if you just want to go farther and be able to kill bigger things and that kind of stuff, I mean, there's games for that. There's video games. There's plenty of games where you can build up and do bigger and better all the time. Really, with D&D, I feel like as a good dungeon master, you're going to make it very clear to people that just being able to kill bigger and badder things isn't really the the core of what you're doing in the role playing experience. You have all these other things, you have all the other senses and all the other aspects of life that you can bring in to D&D and make those things just as interesting as the combat things that people are able to do, because there are different classes that are much better in non-combat situations. And I think really it just takes some examples to show how those things can be used instead of just, I'm going to go in and I'm just going to slaughter everything. You could do a combination of things, and really, if you are in a situation where those consequences of just steamrolling everything are pretty apparent, or you make them apparent in the expectations setup, the session -1 of what you're doing, that you can have a totally different experience than just kick in the door and kill the stuff and take all the treasure. It's kind of core to what D&D is, but there's so much room. There's so much creativity that you can put in that makes it to where you can go beyond what the game could do mechanically as a board game and make it an experience that people will never forget, that may change people's lives. And that's one of the things that I think has been awesome about being a dungeon master for so long, is seeing the impact that those experiences have had on people and how they've taken them forward and gone and maybe thought about their lives differently. So I think this is wrapping up this episode. This has been Daily Datum, and I will see you next time.